Like many great, not easily categorized artists, Milton Avery, an artist I love, did not receive his proper due during his lifetime. According to wife Sally Michel, an accomplished painter in her own right, as is their daughter March, quote, Milton was very avant-garde. Painters recognized it immediately, but it took the general public a long time to understand what he was doing. Milton Avery, the youngest of four, was born in New York in 1885, but upon meeting his future wife, 22 at the time, he revised the year he was born, making him 9 years her senior, as opposed to 17, a gap he thought more acceptable to his future father-in-law. It was a revision that wouldn't be discovered until years after his death. More than superficially interesting, there is conjecture his faux youth made him more relatable, providing access to an artistic milieu that otherwise might have remained off limits. The son of a tanner, Avery left school at 16, taking on a variety of blue-collar jobs. Over a span of 10 years, his father, 2 brothers, and a brother-in-law died, leaving Avery the sole breadwinner for 9 women. In an effort to earn more, Avery enrolled in a professional lettering class and was subsequently encouraged to try his hand at life drawing, and so began a 15-year training period in the fine arts, studying portraiture and refining his skills as a draftsman. Early influences included American Impressionists John Henry Twachtman and Ernest Lawson. Taciturn and rigorously disciplined, Avery worked during the day and painted at night. Biographer Barbara Haskell writes, Avery had a, quote, unrelenting compulsion to work, as if work itself would provide a deliverance from the terrors of everyday reality. In 1925, Avery, claiming to be 31 but actually 40, moved to New York to be near future wife and muse Sally Michel, whom he had met a year earlier at an artist's colony. 1 year later they married, and in 32 their daughter was born. This relocation would prove essential to Avery's artistic growth. Recognizing his genius, Sally insisted she work so that Avery could paint, and paint he did. To quote his daughter March, Avery approached painting like a factory worker. In New York, Avery met Mark Rothko and eventually Adolph Gottlieb and Barnett Newman, among others, younger artists who would become the faces of the Abstract Expressionist movement. According to Sally, quote, Rothko and Gottlieb would come around and study Milton's paintings and just absorb them by osmosis. It's difficult to overemphasize the impact Avery had on these artists, the development of color field painting, and the impending abstract expressionist movement. Quite poor, they all went on local drawing trips together, sketched outdoors. To quote Avery, I try to construct a picture in which shapes, spaces, colors form a set of unique relationships. I never have any rules to follow. I follow myself. While Avery's peers greatly admired his work, institutional adoption was slow. When Museum of Modern Art director Alfred Barr asked Rothko for some of the most important artists of the day, when Rothko named Avery, Barr burst out laughing. Too abstract for the academics and too representational for the abstract expressionist scene, Avery was, in retrospect, a bridge between American realism and the burgeoning Abex movement. The inability of the art world tastemakers to label Avery's work made it difficult to understand and promote him, but he does make strides. As early as 1915, he begins showing his work, has his first solo gallery show in 1928, and a year later makes his first institutional sale to the Phillips Collection. In 1935, he signs with the esteemed Valentine Gallery, whose roster includes European modernists such as Bonnard, Matisse, and Derain. Upon seeing these works, Avery's impressionistic style gives way to more simplified forms and non-representative color. In 1943, he signs with the ever more prestigious modern art gallery Paul Rosenberg Co. Avery's colors soften, become less non-associative. Forms simplify further. To save on supplies, he thinned his oil paints, explored layering to create atmosphere, mood, and illusion. In 1944, the Phillips Collection gave Avery his first museum solo show, but throughout, sales remained slow. In 1949, Avery suffered a heart attack, and the following year, Rosenberg sells off its stock of his paintings at a very low price, depressing the market for his work. In 1951, he earned $50. But with the support of his art community, Avery keeps working, changing, refining. In 1952, he gets his first large-scale retrospective with the Baltimore Museum of Art, and a 1957 article by influential critic Clement Greenberg, admittedly slow to recognize the artist's contribution, authored an article that boosted Avery's career, resulting in a 1960 Whitney retrospective. Avery lived and painted at a time of great social upheaval: the stock market crash, World War II, the Cold War, the nuclear bomb. But you wouldn't know it from his work. Art historian Bonnie Lee Grad argues that Avery's art conforms to the Pastoral Convention. Quote, "What characterizes Avery's art, above all, is the absence of any threat to the pastoral world and its indefinite continuation." Since his death in New York in 1965, Avery has finally received his due. His work resides in the Met, MoMA, Smithsonian, and the Whitney, to name a few, including a myriad of exhibitions both in the U.S. and recently overseas. According to critic Hilton Kramer, Avery displays, quote, "the kind of archetypal grandeur and sweep that is to be found only among the masterworks of modern art. He was, without question, our greatest colorist," end quote. Too bad it took so long.